It's the West Tigers podcast. It's episode number 321. We've got another truncated team tonight. One of the blow-ins is back. Steve Stratton, how are you?
I'm great, thanks, Eddie. What a wonderful introduction. What happened to the new Eddie Otto? I thought we were just going straight into it.
Yeah, well, I'm getting there. I'm cutting it back slowly, the intro. I've put away a few things, but Steve, it's good to have you back on. Obviously, Saturday, we're going to preview the game against the Broncos. Big game for both clubs. Also a little bit to talk about around, we're going to give a quarterly report card into 6 key players. I've asked Steve to do a school report card on Buller, Caesar, Galvin, Appy, Stefano, and Ice Papali'i. So we'll see what Steve thinks. We'll also talk a little bit about that original game in 2000 because, of course, the West Tigers are wearing their retro jerseys, which they wore in their foundation game against the Broncos way back in February of 2000. But, Steve, you weren't on Monday night. What was your one word to take out of the 22-6 loss to the Panthers?
My one word, Eddie, was just frustrating. Really, it was a frustrating game to watch. We were so good in a lot of respects, but so poor in other respects, you know. Like, for me, the lack of points, our inability to score points was frustrating. The refereeing was just unbelievably frustrating. You know, we don't go on about the referees too much here on the pod, which is a good thing. But that decision and the fact it went to the bunker and we got nothing.
That I reckon that's the worst decision nearly I've ever seen. I was talking to Gary today, and I still think there's grounds for a penalty try there. And I think they actually must have forgot about the sin bin because that was the most blatant professional foul in a try-scoring scenario that you've ever seen.
Yeah, I'm with you, Eddie. I think it was a penalty try. No one was going to stop him. He would have been over the line for sure. Would have taken it to 12-0, totally different game, you know. And I'm glad Benji Marshall said what he said because the point he made is so important, right? It's not about, so often we hear, oh, yeah, well, it didn't cost us the game. You know, we didn't lose by 6, so it didn't cost us the game. But that's not the point. The point is this game is all about momentum and key moments. And that was a key moment, and the momentum's changed on that. Now, you can say, yeah, we've got to take our opportunities, and a few minutes later we missed one with Staines, right? And that's true. But we shouldn't have had to worry about that. We should already have been 12-0 up. And that could have changed our mindset. It could have made Penrith panic, and we could have gone on. Who knows, right? It could have been like Parramatta, where we just overcame great adversity to keep playing, but we didn't. And the other thing was frustrating for me, again, I just mentioned it with Charlie Staines, but it's just our execution, our ability to finish off and execute with quality. We just don't seem to do it.
Good to see both those referees have been dropped because that is just incompetence. And I'm glad Benji made the point, Steve, because it's not about, you know, you can't do anything about spilt milk, but the good experienced coaches, they're always getting in the referee's head potentially for the next couple of weeks. I'm sure that's what he's trying to do. Yeah,
we might get the rub of the green this weekend, but gee, we'll need it. And mate, look, just before we move on, can I just have one word? Is that all right? Yeah, my one other word for this week is plagiarism, mate. Plagiarism. Plagiarism. You might want to look it up later, but you know, I listened to the the podcast.
It's good you listened this week, Steve. You didn't listen to us the week before, so that's a start.
Well, it is a start, but you're trying to get the upper hand here, I can tell. But plagiarism, because you made a couple of points that I thought were interesting. One that you're not sure Jerome Luai is going to bring the attacking direction that we need. And the other is that we struggle to score easy tries, and we don't get easy tries, and we're in that tussle all game. And I don't know, mate. I just want to put it out there that maybe one of the blow-ins has made those 2 points their own for the last little while now.
I mean,
I don't want to mention any names, but it's probably me. So anyway, look up plagiarism, see where it is.
I thought it might be Gary because I often tune out when Gary starts to speak because his answers go for 5 or 6 minutes. But Steve, I think it was fair points, especially around Luai. I don't want to talk about Luai tonight because I'll go down a rabbit hole, but I'm starting to get a little bit worried like you. Just before we talk about this game in 2000. Has expectations changed, Steve? I know we had a few, not necessarily arguments, but conversation around expectations this year. And I said at the start of the year, there's a way where 8 wins could be a very successful season. And you sort of snuffed at that. But we're on track for 8 wins, Steve, because we're 2 from 6. So if we keep going like that, we'll get exactly 8 wins. And I would argue if we play like we have for this 6 weeks, you might walk away at the end of the season saying, well, that is progress. Is that fair?
Yeah, it is fair. And I don't know if you heard Cooper Cronk on one of the review shows through the week, but everyone was fluffing it up a little bit and saying the Tigers are improving and it wasn't a bad performance and bang. And then Cooper Cronk just sort of, hit everyone between the eyes and says, yeah, but at the end of the day, this is NRL, and NRL is all about winning. And you can put in all the effort you like, but if you're not winning, if you're not getting 2 points, you're not getting any better. And that is such a Cooper Cronk sort of comment. Like I don't reckon Cooper Cronk would have high emotional intelligence. I reckon he's pretty black and white sort of fella, And I suppose that my comments have been, I suppose, along that line a little bit, in that I just say, the time for excuses is over. We've got a squad of 30. We've spent our salary cap on these players. They've got to do the job. Benji Marshall's a first-grade coach. He's got to do the job. And my point is, they need to do whatever they have to do to make the 8, because we've been waiting too long to play finals football, all of us. And so that's where my points come from. And we've shown that we can do it, but we've also shown that we can't do it with any consistency. And you're tracking to be 100% correct.
Sad day for the West Tigers, Steve, and the whole rugby league community. The death of foundation player, West Tigers player Terry Hill, at the age of 52. West Tigers number 4, played 33 games for the Magpies when he was a youngster, then played 49 games for the West Tigers, 246 first-grade games, 14 oranges, 9 tests. He was a very big personality, Terry Hill, and one of our big signings. And ironically, it was just, we were on our agenda today was talking about that original game, and I was going to talk about some of my favourite players growing up. And when he signed for the club, Terry Hill became one of those. And then half an hour later, that news came through. So shocking news.
Yeah, it is sad, and has left the earth way too young, mate. 52, I think it was, he said. 52 years of age, So that's just awful stuff. And yeah, he was one of our foundation players in that first season, and a really good guy to have, in the squad for our very first year where it would have been really difficult to bring 2 clubs together and a whole bunch of players that hadn't played together before. And a guy like Terry Hill, who came as a class footballer, but also as a real personality. Like I was watching just earlier this afternoon, just to sort of prepare for it, I was watching an old footy show sort of segment where they were doing the West Tigers part 1, part 2, as a new club. And Terry Hill was front and centre in all of it. And I just thought, he's the sort of character that you'd like when you're building a new club, because he'd be just the guy that everyone would love. He'd love a joke, love a prank. And they were away on a camp, and he was organising activities and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, I just remember, Steve, the footy show back in the late 90s. It was probably in its halcyon days then, and they used to send him out to the greyhound track, and they had a dog running for him called Nads or No Nads, and he was like it was like a funnier version of Bo Ryan. I never really quite got around the Bo Ryan stuff on the footy show, but he brought a lot of eyeballs to the Tigers, and he would have been worth a lot in terms of more than they were paying him to play on the wing, in terms of the exposure the West Tigers got with Bo Ryan. But Terry Hill was almost the original in that regard. I know he was probably at Manly at the time when he was doing it, but he was certainly a larger-than-life personality, and he was a big sledger on the field.
Yeah, he was a real character, and I reckon he would have had a big mouth out there, but he could back it up because he was a very good footballer, and attacking and defensively, he was a great centre, Terry Hill, and was a great buy for us. It's really sad.
Injuries probably got the better of him the time he was here. I remember a couple of stories about him. There was one game, it was at Leichhardt, and it was about round 2 or 3 in 2002. And Parramatta, of course, had that nearly unbeaten season. They lost the grand final, but they were raging favourites. And Terry Hill came out, played a blinder that day at Leichhardt. And there was one incident, I can't remember who it was, but a Parramatta player sort of pushed him to the ground and he rolled around like a European soccer player and acted like he'd been knocked out to get a penalty. And then a minute later, he jumped up and he was back in the play. And then there was another story. I'm not sure if I'm 100% right with this, but I don't think he saw eye to eye with Terry Lamb, Steve, because Terry Lamb obviously came in as coach, and I think he used to make him go for these either road runs or bike runs. And one day I think Terry Lamb asked the whole squad to bring their bikes in because they were going to go for a 5 or 10K ride or something like that. And I think Terry Hill apparently brought in his kid's bike or something because he said, we don't do this on the weekend. All I'm asked to do is run the ball. So it was probably hard work for his coaches, but definitely a very sad day. And I'm sure there'll be a minute's silence out there at Campbelltown on the weekend for Terry Hill. Steve, of that original game, do you have any memories of that original game? Because it was a 24-all draw. I do remember that vividly. What I didn't remember is this game was actually played on February the 6th. So I don't know if global warming was around then, Steve, but it was played because of the Olympics in 2000. The rugby league comp started a month earlier, and it was an afternoon game on February the 6th, and the ground looked like Bondi Beach, Campbelltown. It was full of sand. So that was two interesting things that I looked back on when I saw the 5-minute highlights of the game today.
I remember a couple of things. Obviously, the John Skandalis try, which no way today would have been given a try, right? But I remember that, and that was the first try for the West Tigers, and that was early in the game. I also remember the absolute mismatch that the teams were. Like, that Broncos team was absolutely star-studded, and so I remember that, thinking, how are we going to compete? But we did. But the other thing that I remember about that time was Laurie Nichols, mate. And I don't know if everyone remembers this, but Laurie Nichols died
about 2 weeks before the first game, was it?
Just a few days, mate.
Just a few days,
yeah. Before the game, and you sort of think. I can remember thinking to myself, because I actually was living in Papua New Guinea at the time, mate, and I was away from all this. But I can remember thinking to myself, it's probably fitting that Laurie Nichols actually never saw. Like, he backed it and he got behind it.
I think he said, I don't know if he said or one of his mates went on to say that his heart was never really in the merger.
No, I think that was, I've heard Steve Roach talk about that, so it may have been Steve Roach. But the other thing I do remember, mate, and that was the trial, because they played the Northern Eagles in a trial match.
Belted them.
Yeah, they did belt them, but they packed out, I think it was Leichhardt Oval. They packed out Leichhardt Oval for a trial match. And so even though there was a lot of angst about the joint venture, there was also, a lot of optimism.
That Broncos side, you weren't wrong. Some of the names: Lockyer, Saylor, Kevin Walters, Webke, Petro, the old 70 cents a litre, Gordon Tallis, Brad Thorne, Lottie DeKiri on the bench. Not a bad side, is it?
Yeah, 70 cents a litre, a fridge and a freezer.
Yeah, I didn't know if I was allowed to say those anymore, but I still think that was one of the great nicknames, the 70 cents a litre. West Tigers team that day, Steve, there was some interesting things. Obviously, Matt Sears was brought as the high-profile fullback, but didn't actually play this game, but started the year in the centres because of Joel Kane, who scored a hat-trick this day. I had a bit of a love-hate relationship with Joel Kane as a fan. I found him a bit like Tim Maltson, where he was a bit like Teflon. He could be awesome on his day, and then other days he looked like he didn't want to get his jersey wet. But I think he was the leading point scorer in 2000. He had a great year.
Yeah, he was the leading point scorer. And I listened to a podcast, not the Behind the Rod one he did recently. He did one. No, it wasn't a podcast. It was actually on radio. He was on radio a year or so ago, and I heard him talking about his own playing career, and he was saying that he'd never actually believed in himself. He never thought he was a first-grade footballer, and that he was a bit of a imposter, wearing the jersey. And, that probably curtailed his career, and he didn't reach the heights he could have, because, when you do think back to that first game and
he killed it
that season, he could run the ball.
He killed it that year. I don't know how many tries and goals he scored, but leading point scorer in the NRL. Of course, you mentioned John Skandalis scored the first try. 24-all draw, you'd say that was a good result against the star-studded Broncos. And, of course, that team, Steve, they were sitting second behind the Broncos for about half of the year. I think we started with 8 wins from 10. Everything was going great. And I've got this memory of all of a sudden going to Melbourne, and bad things tend to happen in Melbourne, and Jared McCracken getting tipped on his head by Steve Carney. And then the wheels started to fall off after that.
Yeah, and I can't remember how many games he won after that, but it wouldn't have been many.
2 or 3.
And it was almost as though all the air went out of the balloon in that one hit. You know, like they'd played above and beyond themselves all season, and it just all caught up with them. But he was a great player, McCracken. It's a pity that had a very tough player, great forward leader, Jared McCracken. Yeah.
Steve, it's go down a rabbit hole here. I'd say 25 years on, obviously, there's been struggles, there's been highlights, but it's probably fair to say the original merger, how we went about it. I think we were given an $8 million grant, which was big back in 2000 from the NRL. We went on a splurge of signings, signed some really experienced players. We mentioned Terry Hill, international players, like Sahopawadi, Kane, Craig Field was with Balmain, Jared McCracken. Didn't quite work out in the end, did it?
No, it didn't. And you look down that first team, and it's sort of a bit like the Dolphins when they started last year. Like you look at Owen Craigie, Hopewadi, Craig Field, Darren Centre to an extent, Tyron Smith, sort of like just
a mishmash of journeymen.
Yeah, blokes that maybe didn't quite fit in other clubs and sort of brought them all together. So they did pretty well, I reckon, considering.
I agree. It was a memorable year, that 2000, even though it ended sort of disappointingly. I think they finished 9th or 10th. But, Steve, it's time before we preview this week's game at Campbelltown against the Broncos, I've asked you to do a quarterly report card, given it's school holidays at the moment, and some teachers do their reports. I don't think they do them after every term. I think they might do them twice a year, but teacher Steve is going to do one for Jareen Buller. What mark have you given him after 6 games this year?
All right, so I haven't graded him. I've given him a mark out of 10. So I've given Buller a 7 out of 10 for the season, and that's he's been solid. He hasn't done anything wrong, but he certainly hasn't hit any great heights yet. I think he's struggling for involvement in attack. I think he's still a bit lost in the attacking structure. As Gary has said a number of times, notice how I'm referencing the person who made the.
Well, he hasn't been on for a week, so we better mention him, or he'll be invisible soon.
Yeah, I'll get a text for sure. Yeah, he is going across field a lot. He's not yet coming in and straighten the attack. Like you'll notice Reece Walsh, just watch him on Saturday, he'll come at a 45-degree angle, but he'll straighten the attack, when he has to, and just gets that Broncos team going down the park. So 7 out of 10, pretty solid, but maybe a tad disappointing on what
on your grading, I'd probably go maybe 6.5. I'd give him a B. I think, do we take for granted, Steve, the fact that he really doesn't make any errors? I'd probably take that for granted a little bit. Like he's young fullback, like you see Sloan. Like I've looked up Sloan. He's got 27 tackle breaks, which is nearly double Buller. He's got double the tries. But then on the flip side of that, I'm sure he's let in a few tries and made some more errors.
Well, like this used, and I hate to bring this up, this used to be my point about Brooks all the time, right? Like often as fans, we only look at one side of the football. And we look at the errors made in attack and the lack of impetus in attack, that sort of thing. And we tend to not look in as much detail at the defensive work. Like Brooks used to make so many tackles on our line. It was ridiculous. Well, Buller's the same, right? Buller's defensive work is awesome. And so I think we're overlooking that a little bit. I think the other thing we're overlooking is young, man. He's inexperienced. And he's going to have ups and downs.
Lockie Galvin, Steve, he's played 4 games. Already 3 try assists, 2 line break assists. Thing that astounded me, 97.6 tackle efficiency for an 18-year-old coming into first grade. I think he's as close to a sure thing of being a superstar as possible, Steve, for me.
I'll give him 8.5 out of 10. And it's funny, I was thinking about Saturday after his game a little earlier. I'm thinking, well, Payne Haas is back and he'll hit it up the middle, but Payne Hassel tends to also pick his time and go out too wide and hit our edges, hit the edges when he's running the ball. And I'm thinking, who's going to be out there on the edge this week? And I thought, Lockie Galvin. And the first thing I thought was, we'll be okay there. And like, the kid's 18, so to have that reaction straight away, that we'll be all right. Like he's got it all, mate. He's got it.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd want you as my teacher, Steve. I've given him, I'd go 9.5 out of 10. I think he's been exceptional. Aiden Caesar, Steve, 6 games, 2 forced dropouts, 3 40-20. So he's doing some of the little things really well with kicking, 3 try assists. What do you made of Caesar so far this year?
Yeah, I'm giving him the same I'm giving Buller, but for different reasons. I'm giving him 7 out of 10. The similarity with the Buller one is he hasn't done anything wrong. He's doing a job. He's doing a good job. The kicking game is generally on point. But he is floating in and out a little bit of games. And as far as his consistency in being a high impact player, I suppose. And that's probably a tough marker, but we need him to play at that really high level if we're going to do any good this year. So I think he's doing great. Coming back into the NRL after a long layoff, I think he's doing better than perhaps we thought he would do, or some people thought he would do. But a bit more consistency in driving the team.
I think you're on the money there. I would have done the same B or a 7 out of 10. But one thing that doesn't show up on the stats sheet, Steve, that you can't really measure in stats that I've been really impressed with is just his line speed in defence. Like, he goes with real intent. He looks like he's a real talker. He's not afraid to try and hit someone hard. And I think his leadership around the place is probably those sort of things don't show up in stats.
Yeah, they don't, and you don't always notice, or the line speed you should notice, I suppose. But his communication, the confidence that he gives other players, the mentoring that he'd be giving other players, you don't see any of that.
Api Coruscant, our captain, courageous, 6 games, 1 try. He's kicked at 85%, which is underrated. Shows how good at just all-round footballer he is. I mean, he looked like a horrible goal kicker last time, a part-timer, and now he's kicked 11 from 13 this year, most of them straight through the middle. 4 try assists, 4 line break assists. Steve, I think he's been exceptional, but I'm just worried we're burning him out.
I reckon we are burning him out. Absolutely. We'll probably talk about this later, but I just don't like the way we've got the bench made up at the moment. I think we need another hooker on the bench, or if we're going to play Fainu as a hooker, we need to do it for a prolonged period of time to give Appy a decent break during the game. So, I'm giving Appy 8 out of 10 because he's 10 out of 10 when he's not injured and a bit lower when he is injured. But I'm giving Benji, who I'm really impressed with generally, but I'm giving Benji a 6 out of 10 with the way he's managing Appy because I think they're a dangerous
like he's always, even I remember Steve when he wasn't at the Tigers, I remember watching him, I think even Origin games, and I just don't know if you get the absolute best out of him every week as an 80-minute player. He's dropped off a few tackles this year. It's probably just because he's exhausted.
Yeah, for sure. And he's, compared to some of those blokes, he's not a huge guy. I think he should be 60, 65 minutes a game. And there's going to be the odd occasion where you need to get more out of him. But that means that our 14 has got to have a good extended period on the field, and we're not using that rotation like that at the moment.
Yeah, I'm going to go either 8.5 or 9 for Appy. Probably a 9 early and probably drop back the last couple of weeks. Stefano Utokumano, Steve, again, he's played every game this year. 27 tackle breaks, which stood out to me, which is sort of, averaging more than 4, nearly 5 tackle breaks a game, 5 offloads, averaging 120 run meters a game. A bit quiet in terms of run meters the last 2 games. But overall, I think he's been very good to start the year.
Yeah, he's my highest marker. I'm giving him 9 out of 10. He's becoming our forward leader. He's becoming the man in the forward pack, which he needs to be. And he definitely is going to need to be that guy this weekend. He still lacks a little bit of consistency. His first period on the field can be a little bit quiet. He's usually stronger his second stint, but I think the difference is becoming less and less. I think as we go through the season, he just needs to maintain the dominance. That's his job.
Yeah, I'd go probably 8 for Stefano. Ice Papali'i, Steve. I can see your face starting to scrunch up now.
Yeah, man,
Um,
I don't know.
I'm a bit like you. I've given him the benefit of the doubt. I know he's trying, but I'm starting to like. I watched last week's game, as I'm sure you did, and I saw a young guy in Samuela Fainu look far more dangerous on the edge than Ice has in the last 18 months. Is that fair or unfair?
No, that's really fair. I'm sort of scrunching up because I've been watching him a lot this year because I wasn't happy with him last year. And I've been really, and I've been to a few games this year, so I've been trying to keep a close eye on him. And his effort plays are incredible. Like he's there all the time. He comes in off his edge and he's helping out in the forwards. He works really hard. He does, but he's not having the impact. And I don't know what he says at training or what he's like as a communicator or getting the message to his halves as to how he wants the ball or how to best utilize him and whether he's made that known to everyone and they've just shut it down. I don't know, but he's having no impact. And I remember watching a bloke at Parramatta who used to just steamroll defences, and we're not getting that from him. I can understand it last year. Our halves didn't give him any opportunity to do that. I can't understand it quite as much this year. We need the most out of him. We need the most out of all our senior players.
So, what are you thinking? A 5, maybe?
Oh no, I'm better than that. I've given him a 7.
7.
A 7 because I reckon he does, like, his effort is can't be questioned.
I didn't have this one on the charts, but we'll do it anyway. Benji Marshall, Steve, the coach. He's probably, let's be honest, we're probably going to lose this week, and it'll be the first time he's lost 4 games in a row as a head coach. And there's an old saying, I think, you don't know your coach until you've lost 4 in a row. So probably not ideal to go through it, but not a bad thing to go through it in terms of there's no real turmoil going on at the moment. Like we've just talked about 6 of our senior guys. Most of them you're giving pretty good grades there. I think he's got a squad at the moment that is looking like a connected football team. And that's not a massive rap, but if you've watched the Tigers in previous years, it is a bit of a rap.
Yeah, I think if you look at, what's the coach's role? Like he's obviously got a team that'll play for him. Right? So he's won the players over. So that's the first he's done that. His communication through the media at his press conferences has been nothing but outstanding. And that's not just important for us as fans. It's important for his players because he gives a message to his players when he's speaking through the media.
Have you been surprised by that? Because it surprised me a bit. I thought he a little bit more, larrikin like he was with a player. He used to have big personality, but he's been very stern and quite straightforward with the media, which I've enjoyed.
Yeah, I agree with you, mate. I wasn't expecting him to be a larrikin. I was expecting him to be a little bit defensive because when he was doing media work on Fox, if someone said something he didn't like, he got his back up pretty quickly and became very defensive and was almost over defensive. And I was sort of expecting that. Now, he has been strong, right? He's not copping any rubbish, but it's all very calm and very considered and well thought through. So, yeah, communicate. So there's that. And then you look at team performance and there's no doubt this team are playing together, that they are looking better. Defensively, we are looking better than we were. The attack is inconsistent. There's a couple of games we've looked decent in attack. There's been a few where we've looked really pedestrian. But I think, as everyone's saying, we're seeing these green shoots of improvement. And I think that's probably all we can expect from him and all of them at this stage.
Mark, I'm going to go 7.5 for Benji.
Yeah, I'd say about the same. Yeah.
This week's game, Steve, there's a couple of changes. One forced, Junior Tupou out. Solomon Alamalo. I can't say I know a whole lot about him, Steve, but he was a 28-year-old debutant, played for the Waikato Chiefs. I know there's some Super Rugby fans out there somewhere in Australia and New Zealand, certainly not me, but they would have seen more of him. So that's an interesting debutant when you look at that age, Steve.
It is, but I'm excited about this one this week. I haven't seen a lot of the reserve grade footy, so I don't know how he's been going. He's a big body, big body, and we desperately you could argue more than anything else, need to start our sets better than we have been. And my hope is that he's, as a big body, big strong guy, he's going to be able to get back there and start our sets off with some momentum rather than, I watched last week, like our first attacking set. I think we didn't get the ball from the kickoff. We got it after that. And our first attacking set, Buller and then Staines and then someone else all hit the line and got driven backwards, right? Like first three tackles. So I'm hoping that he brings something in that because we need it desperately.
John Bateman goes to lock. Samuela Fainu starts, I assume, on the left edge. Steve, that's I think that's something we were potentially raising last week that might happen. I was probably a little bit surprised they put Bateman to lock, but definitely excited with that Galvin and Fainu combination on the left-hand side.
Yeah, I am too. I think that Fainu will kill it out on the left edge, and he's forming a combination with Galvin, and before he got injured, he and Buller were forming a nice combination down that left side as well. So that gives choice for Galvin of who to give it to, and it gives the defensive line cause for concern because they have to start picking and choosing who's going to get the ball. So we could be quite dangerous down that left edge. We're looking all right down the left edge on last week.
You think Bateman's, I know he was good last week and he's been in your crosshairs a bit as well, same as me. He was better last week, but does he have a future at lock? I just worry that he doesn't have the tactical sort of discipline. You see the best locks these days and they're an extension of their halves. Bateman likes to roam for me.
Yeah, he likes to roam and he likes to play sort of off the cuff or, eyes up footy, right? And so whether he's going to be a good link to give a good ball to an outside player, I'm really not sure. I don't really see that in him. Defensively, yeah, I'm okay with it defensively. What worries me the most with it, though, is he loves to crab across field with the ball, right? He loves to just keep, beating the man on the left, going to the left, right, and just running the ball across field. And we're already having enough trouble going sideways and not straightening the attack. So I'm just worried if he's playing a link role at lock, he's going to keep doing that and run his outside men out of room. That's what concerns me the most. Or then do that stuff when you'll put a kick in and no one knows it's coming. But
Brisbane Broncos, Steve, they're red hot. I think you're with me on the same page. I think they'll win the comp this year if they have their full strength side. They do miss Ezra Mann and Cobbo, but they get Adam Reynolds and Payne Haas back. So this side, for me, like I'm going out there Saturday, and of course I want to see us kill. I don't like the Broncos, but they're a great side to watch even on TV.
Mate, I'm going to channel my Clubber Lang from Rocky in this one, and I'm just going to say I'm expecting pain. And I don't mean that as in Payne Haas, but
good one.
I think we're going to be we're going to really struggle to hold them. And Adam Reynolds coming back now. If he's I don't know, was it hamstring? I don't know if it was hamstring or not, but yeah, hamstring. If his hamstring's still a bit dodgy and he can't kick, then that could be good because Madden is not the best alternate kicker. But if Reynolds' kicking is on song and he's 100% fit, it is the worst possible bloke coming back for injury for us because he'll just drop it into the corner, a metre off the goal line, and we're struggling as it is to start our sets.
Yeah.
We'll spend the whole game. We'll be kicking on the 5th outside of the 40 if we're not careful.
I'm going to go 38-16 Brisbane, Steve. I just think they've got so much strike power. I think a matchup like Penrith suits us a lot more, that play a little bit more predictably. We've got 3 minutes before this Zoom blows up, Steve, so I'm going to go through Yachty's quiz. True or false? John Scandala scored the first try of the match in 2000 against the Broncos. True or false?
That's false, mate. I know that one. Gee, that's the first one I've known all year.
No. Kevin Campion scored the first try of the game before we equalised a minute later. Question 2, multiple choice. Which spine player was sin-binned in our 10-year anniversary game against the Broncos at Campbelltown in 2009? I think this was a game when that drunk bloke ran on the field and tried to attack the referee because he had such a shocker. Was it Tim Moulton, John Morris, Benji Marshall, or Dean Hallertau?
I have no idea. I'm just going to say...
Who was sin-binned?
I'm going to say Dean Halliton.
Benji Marshall gave away a string of penalties in succession, according to Yachty. Jared Maxwell, not my favourite referee at times. Name the 3 seasons in which we've been undefeated against the Broncos. Not many in 25 years. 3 years we've been undefeated. I assume these are the years we probably only played them once.
Well, would 2000 be one?
2000. Another one was a very memorable year.
Oh, you've given it away there.
2005. And the other one was 2020. I was at that game at Leichhardt where we beat them 48-0. I think Harry Grant had a blinder that night. Question 4, Lottie Kiri played 52 games for the West Tigers, 16 for the Rabbitohs. How many did he play for the Broncos? Played the majority of his career there. NRL career. I know he played.
I wouldn't know how many he played. He'd be up over 100, maybe 120.
99 games for the Broncos. And who am I? I was born in 1990. I debuted for a Sydney team and made 68 appearances, scoring 24 tries. I think that was Penrith. In that time, I made my country, state of origin, and international debut. I then headed up north for 2 seasons. Not sure if he even played football. I think he had a break from football. I eventually returned to Sydney and played for a Western Sydney club for 2 years. I joined the West Tigers. In my debut, I made an infamous knock-on. I went on to make 5 appearances for the West Tigers, and then I retired. So another memorable signing, Steve. It was the great Jamal Idris.
Oh, right. Fair enough. Yeah. I was excited about Jamal Idris.
Yeah, I was until I watched what Wadey came back, and then I thought, I'm not that excited.
No, that's right. Yeah. Exactly.
All right.
It reminds me a lot of the other fellow who went up to North Queensland. What's his name? The brother who played for Canberra.
I'll remember soon, Steve. Anyway, Steve, our Zoom's about to blow up in 30 seconds. It's been a quick podcast tonight, but no doubt we'll talk about it on Sunday night. Thanks for joining me, Steve.
Cheers, mate. Bye-bye.